You're listening to A Virtual Review, the podcast about a variety of topics, including technology, entertainment, home improvement, staying healthy, and holiday lighting. Welcome to A Virtual Review. My name is Kevin.
And my name's Matt. Today we're talking about WandaVision. We have the impossible mission of trying to get our thoughts of the entire season 1 in a single podcast. Did you have any expectations going in for WandaVision?
You know, I didn't really have any expectations. I wanted to keep them low because there was a little bit of mysticism about it. And we knew that there was going to be some elements of some classic sitcoms, which there was, and they were great. And, you know, I don't think many people really knew what to expect watching the show because there was, as I said, there was so much mysticism and we didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, they really didn't share too much besides the fact that it was going retro.
Right.
You know, the black and white and the old sitcoms from the old eras, you know.
Right. Like the Dick Van Dyke Show and I Love Lucy and I Dream of Jeannie. And you knew there was something going on, but you didn't know what. You know, right. I had these sort of suspicions that that she was under some kind of control of some other person, but we didn't know what because they played it really well in the beginning of the series with this mysticism of who's in control, what's going on, why is she acting like she's in a sitcom, and it gave you a lot to watch. There were so many clues about different items you saw on the show because they had said, those trickers. They said basically everything you see on the show is for a reason. So everyone started looking at things that were hanging on the wall, things that were on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then we started looking too deep.
All the Easter eggs. Yeah. Well, that was the interesting thing. And at first I thought of it as like an onion. You know, we're peeling away the layers of these onions and of this onion. And the producer and the director, Matt Shackman, and these guys, they kept calling it a puzzle box show. And they did keep dropping these little clues on each show. And it kept me interested.
Oh, absolutely.
At the very end of the first episode, anyways, it did. Did you have a hard time getting through the first few episodes, or were you bought into it?
You know, I was totally bought into it, mainly because I think it wasn't at the end of the first episode that it zoomed out to show someone was watching it on a TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that I was a little. I admit the first like 99% of the show, that first episode, I was thinking, I knew they were going to the sitcom format a little bit, but this seems a little much. And then it zoomed out to show that person watching on a TV in this this very technical area. And I thought, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There's some deeper stuff going on here. Now
there's
really
something
hooked.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that then. It's episode 1 called Film Before a Live Audience, and it's black and white, right?
Right.
We see Wanda and Vision. They have this new house, and there's, I was confused at first what show they were giving nods to, and it ended up being the Dick Van Dyke Show. Do you know Dick Van Dyke at all?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Like, I didn't know that Dick Van Dyke had his own show. I just remember him from Mary Poppins. That's really all I remembered him from.
I mean, I haven't seen, all of the episodes, but I've seen a few enough to understand. And when I saw the show, and they were talking about when they were filming and when they were getting the production ready, they were talking about how they were, honoring these past shows. And when they were first releasing set photos and they showed Wanda and Vision in this 50s era style house, I had thought initially that the whole thing was going to be in the 50s era until this big reveal was done and we knew what was going on.
Right.
And then later on we see that they advance in the years, which props to them for all the details they went through to get to go through the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even
hmm
2000s.
Yeah, I mean that was a great setup, especially for a guy like Matt Shackman, who was that child actor and loved all these sitcoms from back in the day.
Right. Yeah, and I thought it was really cool that thinking back to it, I got even hooked before the end of the first episode, because I think that's when the first episode is when they had dinner with Vision's
Yeah,
boss, and he was
Mr.
choking,
Hart.
and
Yep.
she very Wanda very seriously looked at Vision and said, help him. And I thought, okay, so again, this is another indication of something deeper is going on. What's going on?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. I found that really interesting that they showed that it kind of it almost like it was almost like hitting pause on the TV show, but they were still able to to do what they needed to do.
It's funny you bring that up. That was one of the beats I wanted to talk about. And when they started talking and asking a lot of questions, Mrs. Hart and Mr. Hart, they started asking,
Yes.
you know, when are you going to have kids? This and that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Mr. Hart's choking. It's like he's choking. I'm thinking that he's choking, so he stops asking these questions, you know, and it stops the whole scene. And what was freaking me out was Mrs. Hart, Deborah Jo Rupp. She keeps saying, "Stop it, stop it." You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And is she saying "stop it" to Wanda to stop the choking, or was it her
Oh,
to?
that's a good point. Yeah, because you don't know if she was telling her to stop the choking or stop, asking the questions. Because she kind of didn't she keep
hmm
laughing through the whole thing?
She kept saying "stop it."
Oh,
She
stop
just
it. Okay.
repeatedly said "stop it, stop it, stop it." We're like, "What the heck?" And then you see that's like when everybody breaks character, right?
Right.
And then Vision, she's like, "Hey, stop it! Help him, Vision." And then Vision uses his powers and pulls the food from him, and he's all right then.
Right.
But another great add to this was Agnes.
Yes.
I mean, we get the nosy neighbor, Catherine Hahn, and she's just doing her classic overacting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I think only she can nail that kind of voice and acting. Do you think or no?
Yeah, I think she was the perfect cast for that role. Because I mean, you needed to be able to bring uh, a comedic style to it, and to be
hmm
diabolical, and boy, she nailed it.
Oh man, did she ever? And of course she just pops in,
Right.
you know,
Right. Who
and
just
and
walks
she's
in
like,
through the
why
door?
is she just popping in?
Right.
And I didn't pick up on it until later, but she was just like doing her own thing. She wasn't a part of Wanda's reality. She was like just intruding and doing what she wanted to do.
Right. Yeah. You were thinking that she was, when you realize that people are under Wanda's spell, you think that she's just under the spell too. And then, boy, so that was great that she was able to fit into to what Wanda thought everyone was the way they were acting. And
For sure.
yeah, especially giving those guides on how to be a good wife and everything in that
hmm
episode, and how to spice things up. And
Right. Oh yeah. That was pretty good.
and then Wanda coming up behind the boss, and guess who? And oh, that's just that's how they greet each other in Sokovia.
Sokovia. Those were great episodes,
Yeah, yeah,
or great moments in that episode.
yes,
But and then they kind of close out the show with those two sitting on the couch, and then you kind of see it closing in, and you see this hex forming as the show closes out, and then they back out to that scene that you were talking about, where you see this symbol of sword basically, and then you see someone watching the show on a TV, and
right,
you're like, who's this? This really is intriguing now. This is part of that puzzle box that is really kind of hooked me and kept me watching, was this little glimpse at the end there.
Right, because you couldn't tell if it was if it was in a studio or if it was in some kind of like high tech laboratory or what was going on.
Yeah. So then we go to the second app, which is Don't Touch That Dial. And we get this kind of this bewitched intro, which was cool.
Right.
So you get Vision and Wanda sleeping in separate beds, which was pretty funny because androids don't sleep. And
Right.
yeah, yeah, you get this bit between these two about something's outside the window, right?
Yeah. Right.
But you see, a little bit later on, we see this red helicopter. It's it's the second time we see color, right? The first time we see color is the Stark toaster in the first episode, and then the second time we see color is this red helicopter
Right.
with that sword symbol on it.
Yes. And I admit I had to Google what that was because I wasn't familiar with sword, and it was but you knew you saw that symbol and you knew it was for if you didn't know what it was for, you knew it was for something.
True. Yeah, very true. Yep. And you know what I noticed as these guys are as I keep listening to Agnes, Agnes is just a constant in it, and she's wearing this brooch again,
Yeah.
this brooch that she wore in the first episode. She's wearing this brooch again in the second episode, which didn't really mean much at the time.
Right. Yeah, the brooch with the three figures on there.
Oh, there was three figures on it?
Yeah, yeah. You're talking about it was a round. It was round with I think it was a black background with some white in there.
Yeah.
So there was three figures on that, and that went back to, I don't recall what it was, but that was one of the Easter eggs, and I don't recall seeing the confirmation that that's why she was wearing it. But there's something, and I don't recall if it's deep within the Marvel universe or if it referred to something else. But there was something that has to do with three witches, and it's the same reason why in Hocus Pocus why there's three witches. There's something with that with the quantity of witches. That's why that brooch had three figures on there. But they never got into that. They only showed that the one witch had it back in the Salem, I think it was the Salem witch trials.
Yeah, her mom.
Agatha, took it from the head witch.
Yeah, her mother. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Greek myth where you had the three witches, and they had an eye, and that's what they looked with. They had one eye.
Okay.
And they passed it around, and that's funny. But one of the funny dialogues Wanda says to Agnes, I kind of caught was, Agnes and Wanda are walking to this little party, this little garden party with the other ladies.
Yeah.
And Agnes is trying to tell her, hey, if you find your P's and Q's, you could, get in this lady's good graces, Dottie's good graces. And Wanda says, well, maybe I could just be myself. And Agnes just cracks up because she knows that Wanda isn't being herself.
Right.
in the show, in this reality. So she's just dying at that comment.
Yeah. There's so many moments like that that I'm sure that you picked up on, because I know you've rewatched some, if not all, the episodes. I haven't done that yet, but
I did. Yeah.
I'm sure there are so many references to that Agnes is aware of what's going on, and Wanda it sort of is, but isn't at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, really, there's a lot of hidden meanings in a lot of Agnes's dialogue there, but yeah, it's pretty funny. And then we get to that garden party, and we finally hear this voice coming from that radio,
right,
calling for Wanda.
Right, the voice calling for Wanda, and then we get at the end of that at the end of that episode, we see the beekeeper pop up from the sewer, and it's like, well, why is it a beekeeper? There's so why is he dressed in a beekeeper uniform and
right.
And then Wanda does her DVR thing and rewinds the episode.
Oh yeah, that's right. She rewound that little bit.
She's like, no,
nothing to see.
I'm not ready to deal with you yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I was like, now that
So
is
we get
cool.
another. Yeah, well, I wish I could do that myself sometimes. Uh,
Yes.
so Dottie crushes this glass when she hears that voice from the radio, and we see her hand is the blood on her hand is red.
Right.
So we get another little splotch of color here, and again it's red.
Right.
So that was interesting.
Yes.
And then we meet Geraldine.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And
Did you have any thoughts when you first saw Geraldine? Did you know that she was Monica Rambeau?
I had the feeling that she was, and especially when
Mm-hmm.
when Agn Agnes was like, well, who is she? She doesn't have a house. And I thought, well,
Right.
clearly there's something going on with her, and
Mm-hmm.
we had no idea what yet, and um, but
Right.
and then all of a sudden she starts talking about you know Ultron and Pietro. It's like, whoa, okay, you clearly know more than anyone so far.
So then when they do this, to me, this was my favorite part, was this magic show, just letting Paul Bettany and go off and be comedic. And for him, when he was saying flourish, when he was supposed to do a flourish, and Wanda says, "You just supposed to say flourish. You know, you don't say flourish. You just do the flourish." But he keeps saying it. It's
Right?
it's
Yeah.
hilarious, and it really took me back to. Do you remember? Did you ever see Knight's Tale?
Yes, it's been a while, but yeah, I've seen it many times.
Yeah. But he was. It kind of it just made me think of Paul Bettany's character in Knight's Tale, where he was this bard, and he was like really going out of control, like introducing Heath Ledger like he's this UFC fighter,
Yes.
and you just went all out, and just him going all out during this magic show just really cracked me up. It was my favorite part.
And it's funny you mentioned the Knight's Tale because uh, my wife had shown me a picture and it said, to those of us not deep into Marvel, whenever we see whenever we see Vision, all we see is this, and it was an image, a cropped image of Paul Bettany being completely naked in that movie.
Oh, right.
Because that's how they find.
Yeah,
That's how
that's true
they
too.
find him in the Knight's Tale is completely naked. And they like, okay, come
That's
along with
right.
us.
That's right. Oh man. I mean, he had kind of a bit part,
Yeah.
but he just nailed it, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So they do this magic act, and you think that that Wanda being the the magic person that she is, you think that she's controlling things, and maybe not so much.
Right, right, right. It's funny she uses her magic to make the magic that Vision's doing look fake,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you know.
Yes. Yeah.
So then we roll into episode 3 because they faded out the color, right? And the set looks like a Brady Bunch type house, and we're in the 70s, right?
Right. And one of the things I found hilarious about the progression that we've seen and the interactions is on episode 2 they're in the 60s, and I guess it doesn't matter so much what year that they're in, but they're in the 60s, and Wanda gets pregnant. They see a
Hmm.
doctor, and all in one day she gets pregnant and delivers a baby, and I find it hilarious that the doctor just goes along with this.
Oh,
But the first visit they have, it's okay, yeah, she's pregnant, and yes, everything's okay. The second visit is well, it's been the same day, but now she's at like 8 months.
yeah,
And then
exactly.
later on, oh well, yeah, well, okay, well, I'm on my way for vacation, and then it's, oh wait, don't go to vacation yet.
Hmm.
She's about to deliver the
Right.
baby, and he
You
just
never
goes
know what's
along
gonna
with it.
happen.
Oh,
Hey,
congratulations, Viz.
right.
I thought I don't know, that was one of the funniest parts in the whole show for me.
For sure. And she gives birth to twins, right?
Right.
And Geraldine is there. We see now the Geraldine is definitely not part of the program here.
Right.
She's definitely, even like you said, Agnes is trying to convince Vision that she's an outsider with Herb.
Right.
And on the inside of the house, you've got Geraldine having this recollection, when Wanda says, after she has twins,
Yeah.
Wanda says, I'm a twin, I had a brother, Pietro.
Doesn't she start singing to them with a song from that her mother sang that was
Mm-hmm.
Sokovian based?
I don't know where it came from, but it was definitely
I mean, chances are it was written
Sokovian
by
sounding.
yeah. I mean, chances are it was probably written by Marvel. I'm sure.
So they kind of battle, or I guess they don't battle, do they? Just all of a sudden,
No, because Wanda
she's
says,
booted.
who are you? Where did you come from? And wait a minute, you don't belong here.
Right.
And all of a sudden, basically she almost like flicks her fingers and poof, there she goes and flies out of the hex.
Yeah, we really don't see what happens. All we see is all of a sudden Geraldine is booted,
Right.
and she's outside the hex, and she gets guns drawn, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right. And okay, now we've got a glimpse into the other side of a real glimpse into the other side of this whole thing.
Yep.
Listening to some other interviews, especially with Matt
Shackman.
yeah, about how they wanted to initially release the series. They wanted to release all the first 3 episodes and have it end with that scene. Boy, that would have been really, really cool to cap off that first week with being able to binge a little bit and ending it with, well, whoa, what clearly there's something much bigger going on.
That would have really helped me because I kind of had a trouble with the first 2. I mean, it was entertaining. It was great that there's a new MCU show, and you realize that this wasn't supposed to be the first MCU show. But the first 2, man, it was tough for me to really get excited about. And then, like you said, this third show, it did get me excited because I'm like, all right, now we're in the real MCU here.
Yeah.
And if we would have done what Matt Shackman wanted to do, I think a lot more people would have jumped on board or stayed on board.
Yeah.
The people who didn't stay on board,
But it's something I've got to say. I almost, not to jump too far ahead here, but I almost like the first half of the show better than the second half because it was I found it to be so well written. These sitcom episodes that I had to keep reminding myself that there's things to observe in the show, that there's things to pay attention to, that this the whole setup isn't really real. But man, I found myself so often getting sucked right into what I was watching and laughing at the corny jokes and not even thinking about paying attention to everything I'm looking at. So hats off to them for putting all that work in and producing these great episodes that paid homage to the classic shows that clearly they got right because I got sucked in. Sometimes it'd be 10 minutes and I'm realizing I'm not really paying attention to what's going on in the show. I'm just I'm enjoying the banter and the corny jokes, and so hats off to them for the fantastic writing and acting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, even the length of the shows, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get you can make it through 30 minutes, and it, like you said, the puzzle box format made you really think this is a mystery, something's going on, all these questions, and then the plethora of Easter eggs out there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And and at first I was a little irritated that the first, I don't know how many episodes there were that were only 20 or 20 to 25 minutes long. But looking back on it, how are you going to do? Because I was hoping they were going to be an hour long, obviously, because I love Marvel. I want to, all I want to do is I want to sit and watch a continuous loop of new Marvel content. But
right. You and me both.
But writing and keeping people entertained for that long, being in that kind of a classic TV episode, I
Mm-hmm.
imagine it would start to get a little old, where you'd basically have to film 2 episodes at once, and then how do you keep people interested? So I understood once I realized what was going on, I understood, and it actually made me appreciate it a little bit more. The fact that they kept true to the format of the show, and how it flowed, how those old classic shows flowed. So it made a lot of
For
sense
sure.
afterwards, and as time went on and the
And they
episodes
were
got longer.
half-hour shows too.
Right.
Back in the day, those were 30-minute shows.
Right, and you take the commercials out, and it's. I mean, I don't think they probably had as many commercials as we do now, but it stayed true to what the original show, those original older shows were.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. We get to episode 4 called "We Interrupt This Program," and this is where, to me, I got kind of excited because now we're in the present. We're not that we're in the present, but we know we're in the Marvel verse.
Right.
I found that this was a very cool way to introduce Monica Rambeau with her blipping in.
It's that it was almost that lost, uh, you know, version of showing you a character and developing that character is just throwing you in, showing this person, and then an episode or two later showing where they're coming from and what their background is, and why they're
Yeah,
doing what they're
I
doing.
like that.
It's almost that style.
That's very true. So we find out not only is this Monica, but that her mom passed away,
Right.
Maria, and that was, you just see the chaos of everyone blipping in and just it's just, I mean, we got a little bit of that in Spider-Man, but everyone blipping in, it must have just been crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I noticed that they did it a little different from Spider-Man to this, and I'm so glad we got to see. For one thing, I was thrilled with the way they did it in WandaVision, because they
Mm-hmm.
basically blipped in like they blipped out, and it was really, I loved seeing that side of what that looked like, of people coming back in and being very confused, and that was just, it was such an interesting. It's almost it almost felt like a behind the scenes thing that happened, that
It did.
it was just a detail that no one was ever going to talk about, and okay, here's a little clip in something that it's a detail that no one was going to see, but I'm really glad that they did. um
Me too. Yeah,
to show what that looked like, because
absolutely.
they didn't show that in Endgame, which, granted, if they wanted to show everything they wanted to in Endgame, it was going to be how it was going to have to be a
4 hour.
home release, just like Justice League is going to have to be, because it's 4 hours long.
Exactly.
Which I
Yeah.
would have been okay with.
Yeah, I know. Give me more, please.
But
So,
for me, I can never
so
get enough of this stuff. So
no, I'm with you. We find out that Monica is part of Sword, and that Maria actually created Sword, or
Right.
was one of the founding members at least, and that Monica is this astronaut. And we find out what Sword is, this sentient weapon observation and response division, and dealing with robotics, nanotech, and AI. So they kind of pull that curtain back. They're pulling the curtain back on who's watching Wanda, and we finally get part of this puzzle box solved,
yes,
which was kind of cool.
yeah,
We get a bunch of new characters too. As we're kind of going through this guided tour of Sword, they have the spaceships in the background, and we meet Director Hayward,
right.
and he's kind of given these little hints that he is not exactly on the side of aliens and
Right.
robots. Like, he says, one of the first thing he says is, the space is full of unexpected threats, and Monica says, well, threats and allies, let's not forget the good guys here.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I found I liked him in the beginning, but I found, and I don't know if I don't know if I've just been spoiled by Marvel and their amazing character developments and over time, but it seemed to me like he needed to be a little bit more diabolical than what he was. Now, granted, the true person that was that was truly diabolical was Agatha Harkness, but and so it just seemed like he could have been a little bit more deviant than what he was. That seemed a little. I hate to say cheap, but it seemed a little cheap to me. And
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it kind of to me he seemed like a director Fury who didn't have someone to keep him in check.
he was almost like a cheap bad guy to me,
Ah,
and not
yeah.
that, and if you had to involve him more, I don't know how he would have been more involved, and it probably would have
Mhm.
taken a little bit away from what was happening in
The
the
mains.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess in that way that he fit the bill for what he needed to be, and of
You make a
course,
good point, though. You know, you need a strong villain, and you
yeah,
had the strong villain in Agatha, and you need a strong villain on Monica Rambeau's side. And if he didn't fit that bill, you know,
right, and
I kind of considered him like a director Fury gone bad.
right, gone a little rogue,
Um,
and yeah,
yeah.
and part I know part of my problem is I was reading too much into fan theories, and I kind of wanted him to be Mephisto or something that was
Right.
connected to Agatha, and it wasn't,
Mm.
and I understand that there's probably going to be some more things that are deeper connected coming into the future, um, but it seemed like,
Hmm.
because Marvel sometimes they like to, especially when something is revealed 2 to 3 episodes from the end, or that far away from the end, that there could be even more things beneath the surface that you don't even realize, because Marvel of anything they love to do is take you by surprise at the end, and go in a way that you didn't expect,
Oh
and
yeah,
it just
for
it
sure.
kept feeling and this is part of my issue with the series. Granted, I love the series,
Hmm.
uh, but it
Hmm.
felt like it just seemed like there could have been more to it. Granted, this is their first TV series, but
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. This is why I liked the the mysteriousness of the first few episodes of, there's something devious going on, but you didn't know what.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, not just us, you know, a lot of people, since they gave us this puzzle box, they they kind of made us think outside of, you know, who could these people be? You know, is there something more diabolical here?
Right.
Um, Things like that. So it wasn't just you, man. You know.
Yes.
But then we, speaking of magic, we get Jimmy Woo.
Yes. And I freaking love that guy.
Did you recognize him immediately?
Yes. Yes.
I didn't. I was like, I know I've seen him somewhere, and then I kept thinking about it, and me and my girls were watching it, and we're going, where is he from? I know we've seen him before, and then we figured it out.
Yeah, he's got the line at the end of Batman. How'd you do it? You think he's asking bigger thing? And no, the card trick. It's like,
The up close card magic, yeah. Oh
and
man.
yeah,
And of course he brings it. He brings it in.
I
You
know
know.
he got good at it too. He had to
Yeah.
show off the card
Yeah.
trick, showing it to give him one to Monica.
Right. And those two goofballs, him and Darcy,
Yes.
you know, they kind of, Darcy gets in too, and they kind of are this little comedic end of it on the sword side.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They were
Did they
great.
did Darcy surprise you too?
Yes, very much. Yeah, I don't know, but like I saw Darcy, and I was almost expecting to see Natalie Portman sitting next to her.
Whoa!
And but yeah, they were great, and leading into all that, when Hayward's asking about her, and does she have some funny nickname? It didn't occur to me until that time that no one referred to Wanda as a Scarlet Witch. I really thought that she was known as that, and it didn't. And at first, I thought that Jimmy Woo was just saying, "Oh no, she doesn't," just to not I guess to not demean her or anything. But I hadn't realized that she hadn't got that nickname yet.
No. Yeah. So Monica's brought in to help Jimmy, and she's supposed to send a drone in because Jimmy has this missing person who we never find out exactly who this missing person is.
Right.
But I gotta tell you, they had this drone, right? The drone? You're a drone guy. Did you just crack up when you saw this drone that Monica pulled out from Sword?
Yes.
I mean, wow. Just
What the
I
hell
don't
is
know.
this?
It was free. I would think it'd be something maybe, like how the shield.
Has like the most advanced technology in the world.
Yeah.
Something that
But
would almost
no,
just
they get
hover
this
like a
ghetto
space. I think
helicopter.
it would almost like hover like a spaceship, but no, it's just a classic thing that goes up and
Yeah. At least like the drone we see today, with the quadcopter type drone. But no, it's this really lame remote helicopter.
Right, and then I'm thinking that
Painted
wouldn't be
up like
that,
Captain
that
Marvel.
wouldn't be that easy to fly.
No, man, no. I thought you get a kick out of that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
But
Yeah, I thought for sure it would have been
Mhm.
like, she'd put something on the ground, push a button, and it like transforms into something else, or something like that.
yeah, some kind of cloaking device, maybe. I don't know, but then we do see Darcy rolls in with a bunch of other scientists. We find out she's an astrophysicist, and one of the funny lines that I caught was after everyone introduces themselves, she says, "We got the full clown car,"
Yeah.
referencing the circus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was funny.
Yeah, she's so hilarious and basically everything that she does, and I'm a big fan of hers,
Yeah,
and there's
me too.
there's all this
Yeah.
there's this talk about, I don't know if it's talk within Marvel or not, or if it's just fan talk, but I know there's a big desire to have a Jimmy Woo and Darcy spinoff, and even if
Oh
they
man,
did,
I was gonna ask
even
you
if they
about
did
that.
like
Yeah.
a short little like 3-episode thing, I think that would be fantastic. I think all the fans would love it. Just and it could just be
Yeah.
something that's
I would.
like 20 minutes long each episode, or even just like a quick little web series or something,
Mm-hmm.
especially something that references
I mean,
other things in the MCU. And yeah, I think that'd be amazing.
yeah, almost like a new Agents of Shield type show, but good.
But funny, because she's hilarious and so is he.
Yeah, they're both funny.
Yeah. Yes.
So then speaking of drones, we get like this drone shot of the Sword base that's outside the Hex, and I thought immediately of Thor. Oddly enough, that we're talking about Darcy.
Okay. Yeah.
Remember when they had this little base set up around Mjolnir on Earth?
Yes. Yes.
Thor had to bust in there to get Mjolnir back.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of like the same kind of setup they had for this little sword response base here.
Right.
But so I wanted to bring this other item up here because Stan Lee, he really liked to create his heroes using real science. And I remember hearing this interview with him that he'd like to do that to encourage kids to get more engaged in science in school,
Mhm.
things like that. So I made a note to mark up the CMB radiation that Darcy finds.
Okay.
This cosmic micro background radiation.
Okay.
And I'll put a link to it in the show notes, and people can dig into that if they want to. But it's real, and it's
Really?
kind of, I guess yeah. And when you look at the stars up in at night, there's a little bit of fog around a star,
Okay.
and apparently that is this radiation that dates back to the Big Bang,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
that's why. Yeah, it's kind of interesting, but we'll put a link to that. But I thought that was cool,
Yeah, that is cool. I mean,
and
because you almost assume that when especially when Darcy's explaining things, what she finds or in relation to that, you almost assume it's all just fictional, made up,
hmm
words and jargon, and maybe loosely based on something that's real. But that's really interesting
yeah,
that it's actually based on something that's real.
yeah, yeah. It was kind of cool. Speaking of the radiation, we see the beekeeper now, and we find out that he's in a rad suit, not the beekeeper suit.
Right. Go through the hex, you don't know what you're going to turn into.
Right? Yeah. It's kind of like you saw Stranger Things, right?
Yes, of course.
So when they go into the upside down, they're wearing the rad suit. It kind of reminded me of that. So they're inside this sword base, and then we kind of get a glimpse of the hex. We get a first idea of, well, really the second idea that there's this hex, and they're trying to work out just what's going on here, just like we are.
Right.
And it's almost like this, like you said, all these questions that the fans have, they're kind of asking these same questions. So it was kind of neat to me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it also get. I believe in that scene or in that moment, you also see kind of the enormous size of the hex and maybe a little bit of the details from that. Because wasn't there like a hologram of it, showing what it was?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as Darcy's trying to figure this out, we see this same scene in from episode 1, that closing scene of someone sitting at the table. We see that that's actually Darcy. We kind of circle back. We kind of circle back. We find out that we're almost catching up in time. We're almost back in time. So we kind of get a timetable of where we're at.
Right. Because
So that was nice.
yeah, because at a certain point they figure out how to basically send a signal into the hex, and that's when Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Woo goes to the and the I guess the border of the hex and tries to
Mm-hmm.
broadcast, and we see back that it's been him that's trying to
That's
communicate
right.
with
Yes.
Wanda, and
Through the radio.
right through the
Yeah,
radio.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah,
And then we see how Monica gets kicked out of the hex. They have the little confrontation there, and N- Wanda gets her accent back.
yeah, yeah.
We see a little bit of red magic going on.
Yeah, and it was so that I mean, and then you realize that that she is in control, that she knows what's going on, but she just doesn't want to deal with things, and
Now we kind of find out that we're in sync, right?
right.
And the last episode, how that ended, is kind of how this last episode ends. So we're all together in time here. And then Wanda sees a vision where he's a zombie. He's dead.
Yes.
And he's like, "Hey, is everything okay, Wanda?" She's like,
And
"Don't worry. I have everything under control."
right. And that's what I had thought that a fan theory that I had seen was going to be true because uh I saw that, and I
Mhm.
because one of the fan theories I saw was that Vision is actually walking around as a as a as a zombie, basically, that he's dead, and Wanda's making him
Oh,
walk around and do all these things, and that fed right in there. I thought, oh,
really?
holy cow, he really is. She
There
she
he
broke
is.
she broke him out of the sword facility, and he's just he's a dead body just walking around.
Right. Yeah.
So we see Monica get thrown out of the hex, right? And they
Yeah.
and something I wasn't picking up on was the fact that she got thrown out of the hex. They sent her to medical to get some scans, and she's sitting there, and they
Yeah.
oh the scans came up came up blank. There must be some problem. We need to rescan you. And she says, no, I'm not waiting on that. It didn't even dawn on me that until Darcy said, your DNA is wasn't it her DNA was changing because of that
Yeah.
radiation. And it took me a little bit
Right.
after that to realize, okay, so she's changed, her DNA is changing. She's probably getting some powers, and this is how she becomes, isn't it Photon or
Yeah.
I know in the
Yep.
comics she even becomes Captain Marvel at one point.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how she's getting her. It's her origin story, right?
That's her origin story. And I was speaking of that, I was at the time I was disappointed that she didn't have a bigger part in the finale than she did. But thinking more about it and hearing an explanation that, listen, we're going to see Monica Rambeau again in Captain Marvel 2, and you'll see her powers being used. And I thought, okay, I didn't think about that, and because this was really this whole show was more about Wanda and getting through her grief and Agatha trying to get her powers, not so much about showcasing Monica's powers. So that makes more sense and Monica has a stronger connection with Captain Marvel than she does with Wanda, obviously. So it would make more sense that we would see more of what Monica can do.
It's cool you brought that up though, because I really like this actress. Her name's Teyana Paris.
Yes.
And I just thought, man, she is a great actress, and she just really nailed this part.
Yeah, I totally agree. She was perfect for it.
Sometimes they bring people in, usually they're spot on, and man, they did not drop the ball there.
Right.
She did a great job. It was one of those pleasant surprises,
Yes. Marvel usually knocks it out of the park with casting.
Right. Right. And they did again. So we got episode 5 now. We're on a very special episode, and this is kind of the 80s and 90s.
Yes.
The kids
with the Full House
grow up.
with the Full House intro.
Right. Yeah.
My wife and I were kind of laughing.
They're trying. Yeah.
Like talk about paying homage to Elizabeth's sisters there.
Yeah. Exactly. So they're trying to get the kids to sleep, and one of the things that Paul Bettany said was he's reading Charles Darwin's The Descent of Man, and he still can't get his kid to sleep. And I don't know why, but because he said Charles Darwin, and he's Paul Bettany, he was in Master and Commander. And do you remember that movie at all?
I don't think I ever saw that.
Okay. Well, he plays this surgeon.
Okay.
And they're passing by the Galapagos Islands, and something that, with Darwin, with the Galapagos Island, and then you've got the Paul Bettany character who really wanted to visit. Part of his character arc was that he really wanted to visit the Galapagos Island, and I thought that was a cool little. I don't know if that was a nod or not to his character in Master and Commander, but it made me think of it.
Yes.
So,
it seemed like, when they had said that there's all kinds of different references in this show to different things and not even necessarily within the MCU, but it seemed like as time went on, the references became less, and it was just what they wrote into the show just to proceed with the show, because it seemed like the Easter eggs got less and less as the further you went in. So sometimes I think some of the items that were Easter eggs happened to just be coincidences. So maybe
that's what I heard.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I did try to watch a couple of the Easter egg videos that you and I were talking about, and a lot of them were pretty cool, and a lot of them just didn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I know they got a kick out of, we told everyone to watch everything, and there was a reason. There was a lot of Easter eggs, and then they some things are Easter eggs and some things aren't. It's like, oh, you tricky,
Right.
tricky people.
Right. Exactly. So Wanda's trying to get the kids to sleep, and there's no joy. And so, of course, Agnes drops in, and she wants to take the kids to her place,
Right.
and that's what happens. In fact, part of that conversation was Agnes wasn't sure if what she said to Wanda was something that Wanda wanted to hear or not. So she says, something like, "Did I get that right? Do you want
Yeah, it
to
was.
reset the scene?"
Yeah, it was something like, "Do you want me to try?" I think it was, "Do you want me to? Do you want me to say the line again or something?" Yeah,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I know I remember Vision saying, getting a look on his face like, "What is? Why would she say something like that? That seems very odd."
Yeah, for
And
sure.
boy, give props to the writers on that one because you know
Oh, yeah.
Agatha knows what's going on, and she plays right into the whole
Mm-hmm.
bit of yes, oh yeah, you're controlling me. Oh, did I mess it up? Do you want me to start over? And it's like, man, that was genius right there.
It was, yeah. And you know what threw? Well, I'll touch on that later. But did the lavender? I know you watched some of the Easter egg things too. Did the lavender throw you off or give you a nod to something?
The
Because
lavender,
I know you brought up the color of the flowers um,
yeah, the color,
at one point.
yeah. So the color of the flowers in front of Wanda's house was red, and the color of the flowers in front of Agatha's house or Agnes's house was purple, and
Mm.
then the Easter egg that didn't turn out to be anything was the flowers in front of uh can't think of her name now, the blonde woman's house were yellow, and
Dottie.
Dottie, yes, thank you. And that
Mm.
was thought to be that that the two of them were part of a trio. And
Mm.
once again, props to Marvel for making us think that there was more to it than what there was, because they made
Yeah, well, they really,
2/3 of the equation work, but not the third.
r- right. Well, they really did. Agnes really made a point to point out Dottie's flowers in that, was it the second episode?
Yes, yeah,
So I can see why people were really focusing on that if they were. Yeah. So I guess maybe the lavender was a nod to her
yeah,
power color
yeah. I would
maybe
think so.
later
Yeah,
on.
yep.
Yeah. So then we get this family ties intro, and Monica wakes up in that Sword Field Hospital. And like you were saying, they take that X-ray of her, and it's just bright light. There's no X-ray. It's just light,
Yeah,
which was kind of telling.
right.
And later on, we go back to the Sword headquarter little offshoot, and Hayward shows that video of Wanda breaking into Sword, and he says that Wanda stole Vision's body.
Right.
And when you do see like a little blurb there, and it's like you can see. I mean, going back later, you can see where they screwed with the video. But at this point in time, if you're watching this show for the first time, there's no reason for you to believe that, or there's no reason for you to argue that Wanda didn't, Wanda stole Vision's body.
Right, and that further fueled the theory that she is having Vision walk around as basically a dead body, you know,
The zombie,
a
yeah,
zombie a zombie
yeah,
body. So yeah, that
yeah,
that was real good, and yeah, that fed into even more conspiracies and
yeah. That just made me hate Hayward even more
yes,
later on. It's like, oh, you bastard.
right,
But he does also set up the timeline where we're at,
right,
and so really with Monica's, when she blipped in, it was 3 weeks. She came to Hayward or to Sword 3 weeks after that, and then it was 9 days after he says it was 9 days ago that happened. So you're looking at Wanda's been in her reality for 9 days.
Right.
So we get a little timeline
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Because other than that, you have no reference of time, and you know that, especially at this point, you don't know how long it's been because obviously Wanda is controlling things in her own way, and it could be a situation like the Jim Carrey movie, like the Truman Show, where it needs to be nighttime now. It could have been anything. You don't know.
Right, exactly. So there's a lot of things going on in this episode. You get Sparky the dog, right? And the kids grow up to 10 years
Yeah,
old.
I thought that was hilarious. No,
And
kids, you're too young to have a
like,
dog. You need to.
what?
How old do we need to be? 10. Okay, boom, we're 10 now.
Right. Boom, 10. Yeah.
Like that's what every kid would want to do. Like, okay, I'm 10 now.
Yeah. So I thought why are they bringing in this dog? And the interesting thing that one of the interesting things that Monica says is she says that the twins are hers and that everything in there is real. So that was that was from her point of view.
Okay.
But it just kind of teed up a little bit of what's going on there.
Right.
And then in that same conversation, Jimmy and Darcy bring up Captain Marvel to Monica, and Monica just shoots him down. She says, "We are not talking about her. We're talking about Wanda."
Right.
Like almost like they're arguing or fighting or something. Did you pick up on
I
that
did
at
a
all,
little bit.
or
Yeah.
am I just
Yeah. Like
thinking
she doesn't
things?
want to talk about other people. Yeah. And
Okay.
yeah, and that feeds into the thing that I've something I've always said is part of the problem that I've always had with shows, and this is just on my end. I don't know if other people have the same issue. Is when something big happens and there's a problem and there's evil to fight in the world or something. How
Right.
hard is it to call up another superhero and say, hey, can you come over, can I get an assist over here? And that kind of fuels, or that kind of feeds the reasoning of not calling other people in is well, listen, we're here to deal with this, and this is what we're gonna deal with it. We don't need, we're not gonna call in other people.
So I had to bring this up because we do like to talk about tech, and they got this scene with Vision working on the Commodore 64 when he gets this email
Yes.
about the Maximoff anomaly.
Yes.
I just had I had a Commodore 64 growing up, and it was just really cool to see everything. I mean, I even had that little 5 1/4 floppy locking little container.
Yeah.
I had that whole setup. It was great. I just loved seeing that. That was just so much fun.
It is fun to see old tech like that, in a show, and especially
Mm-hmm.
be truly representative of how it worked. And
Right.
yeah.
I mean, let alone Vision working at the computation center.
Right.
But so he starts putting things together, especially when he intercepts this sword email about the Maximoff anomaly, right?
Well, doesn't because doesn't Darcy figure out a way to send that to him somehow? I think that's what happened, because Darcy's, I think she figured out how to communicate with Vision, and she figured out that he didn't know what was going on either. So said I'm pretty sure she was able to send him a message like that.
Okay. I didn't pick up on that. I just assumed he intercepted it, some rando email, but I'm sure you're right. Yeah. So then he releases Norm, and he does really figure out that hey, I'm we're in this strange reality and something going on with Wanda.
Right. Wanda's control. Please
But
tell her to stop it. It hurts so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So going back to Sword now, they want to send this more improved drone, I guess, to talk to Wanda.
I.e. a big gun.
And yeah, exactly. Which Monica doesn't realize this. Everybody, nobody but Hayward really is like, hey, we're just gonna talk. And Hayward's like, no, we're gonna shoot her down.
Right.
And
And the kids.
and yeah, it's like, whoa, okay. This is where Hayward and Monica just they butt heads, and he says, if you, I'm glad you weren't here.
Yeah.
Glad your mom wasn't here, basically, to see this.
Right.
She'd be so disappointed, etc. I didn't really pick up on the fact that the drone was imbued with this magic from Wanda. This red energy. When Wanda comes back and she throws the drone back at Sword when she goes outside the hex, she takes the drone and she throws it at him, and she says, she gives her warning and stuff like that. So this drone is still imbued with her red magical energy. I didn't really pick up on anything with that.
Yeah,
until
I don't even
later
recall,
on
I don't
we
even
find
remember
out.
that.
Yes, that's how tricky it was.
Okay.
When she throws this drone back at him, it's got this energy, and they use it later to create the White Vision in that
Okay.
post-credit scene there.
Yeah, because they needed
Yeah.
just a little bit of her power to
Mm-hmm.
power on their vision.
Right. Yeah, and that's how they got it, was this drone. So that was kind of weird. Winding this down, this was a big episode for me anyways, this episode 5.
Yeah.
Sparky dies, right?
Right.
Sparky the dog. And you get this I got this parallel of loss that Wanda's feeling. She's trying to explain it to her kids about loss, and then she's trying to also deal with her own loss.
Right.
So that was pretty blatant, because even Vision walks up. He's like, hey, who are we bringing back?
Right. Yes. Yeah, I did. I picked up on that also. It was a very very true moment of you kind of realizing that she's still trying to process some loss and death.
So that's, because at first in this episode I was like, why would they bring this dog in? I didn't really get it. And I see that the show writers kind of used it as this parallel.
Right.
And it kind of set up the rules for the Marvelverse here, where she can't use magic to bring back the dead.
Right. Yep.
So that kind of clarified to me, okay, if she can't bring back the dead, this can't be
real Vision.
the Vision.
Yeah.
We can't bring back, Black Widow, because
Right.
a lot of people say, well, how come Wanda can't bring back
maybe
the Black Widow? Well, yeah,
Maybe.
there's a whole nother, yeah, right.
I know that maybe goes to the very end in the very last bonus scene of the series, but yeah, that's a big maybe now.
Right. So then we get this argument between Vision and Wanda, because Wanda's hurting people, and they start kind of flying in the air. But she admits that she doesn't know how any of it happened in the first place.
Right.
And that was a interesting conversation, and we get to see Uncle Pietro.
Those.
What did you think when this first happened?
You know what I thought. We see freaking Evan Peters showing up at the door as brother, and I'm like, ooh, this is our introduction to the multiverse.
Yeah,
Which is, I think, what most people thought if they knew it was a possibility. And boy, they certainly dangled a carrot out in front of us and then just made it disappear, because
oh man,
it just
was...
like and again,
Yeah.
props to them for mastering, that casting and really throwing people for a loop. It's one of those things that at first you're mad about because it, what you think it isn't true, but then it's like you look back and like, man,
dude,
that's a genius move right there.
bro, I'm still mad about it. So,
But it's like
so
the
yeah,
things
there's
the
that.
things that you can do when you've got Marvel money and power. Like, oh, here, let's bring this person in to make everyone think that he's from the Marvel or that he's from the X-Men. Haha, he's really not.
Dude, I don't know, man. I thought that was a dirty, rotten trick. I thought it was a dirty, rotten trick. I'm still angry about it. But, but so this is the Halloween spectacular now,
Yes.
episode 6, and it's the Malcolm in the Middle style episode,
Right.
and they got the cool intro and Pietro's, not letting us down as far as his Quicksilver appearance in Days of Future Past.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's just amazing.
Let's make people think it's even more that by making him the same type of character as he was in the other movies.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, this is great." And then we get the costumes.
Oh, yeah, especially when he shows
Wanda's
up
wearing
yeah.
her
She's wearing the Scarlet Witch costume,
right.
which is great.
Yep. Exactly, and Vision's in his.
Right.
You look like a Mexican wrestler.
Yeah. And then she says to Pietro, "But you don't have a costume on." "Oh, hold on. Oh, let me go get dressed up in old school Flash costume."
Yes.
Or not Quicksilver.
From the 60s. Right. Yep. It's Halloween. It's just great because it's just an excuse for them to wear these costumes.
Right.
And Vision's so worried about what's going on in the neighborhood that he wants to join the neighborhood watch again, and he wants to patrol. So Pietro is taking them on this crazy Halloween trick or treating adventure.
Only being mischievous and just being that being that classic fun uncle role.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great. I mean, which was great for him.
Right.
And Wanda's trying to figure out if he's really her brother. So she's drilling him with, remember that guy and this thing?
Right. Yeah.
And he doesn't answer, but he says, "You're testing me, aren't you?" And she goes, "Well, where's your accent?" He's like,
"Where's yours?" Right.
Yeah. But
yeah, and
so overall, you were pretty happy with Pietro.
I mean, as happy as you can be, knowing that it's basically a recast, and the things that they did, when the one reference that they made earlier on, in this episode was they referenced Kick-Ass, and I thought that was hilarious, especially the fact that they didn't even mean to. They didn't even mean to reference that the movie that both
the film
Peters
the movie Kick-Ass.
Can't remember the other guy's name now. That the original Pietro that they were in the movie they were in about
together.
being superheroes, and then the
yeah,
scenes,
that was a happy accident.
The scenes with Vision going basically to the outskirts of town and seeing people just being stuck in this loop of hanging, decorations, which I found, for one thing, I thought that was really cool to see, of people being like stuck in a loop of where you would just be looking at them for a second, so it would be fine that they wouldn't really be doing anything. But then I thought, like I get what they're trying to show, but I also thought it was funny that these people are putting up Halloween decorations Halloween night while it's dark out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of odd.
Well, but at the same time, you're like, all of a sudden, it's Halloween.
Right.
It's like, how did that happen?
Right. This is the Wanda hex after all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to summarize this more here, the kids get powers.
Right.
And it seems to match with the comics and what people expected the kids to be. I did pick up on when Vision was questioning Agnes in the car when she was wearing her witch outfit of all things,
Right.
that his powers didn't work on her.
Right.
Right? She was messing with him.
And again, yeah, ooh,
So
yep, you took me out. You took me out of the fog.
yeah. It kind of burned me. That little bit just kind of burned me too there, but I get it. But she wasn't wearing her little brooch. That was the one time I noticed that she wasn't wearing her little brooch.
Oh, okay, I didn't pick up on that.
But
But yeah,
yeah.
she did wear that most of the time though, didn't she?
Yeah, she wore it, I mean, all the time, and for some reason she wasn't wearing it there. But I think this is the part where Vision tries to break through the hex.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, because he said, because he he touched her head, and she made him think that, okay, yeah, I'm out of this, the
Mm-hmm.
the haze, and I don't know what's going on. Please, someone needs to help. And okay, yeah, I'm gonna find out what's going on. And that's when he
Mm-hmm.
gets to the edge of the hex, and starts breaking out, and he sort of gets through, but he's like falling apart, and then you think, well, why in the
Yeah.
world is he falling apart like that? And because we didn't
Mm-hmm.
quite know. I thought, well, how come
Yep.
how come Monica got out of the hex with not basically depixeling almost,
Right.
whereas
Right.
he's fading back out.
Yeah. Yep. So to fix that, Billy tips mom off that dad's in trouble.
Right,
So she expands the hex.
right.
And when she expands the hex, the circus, the circus that is Sword,
All the
gets
right,
created into an actual circus.
right. Yeah, I thought that
But
was pretty funny.
that was definitely one of my top episodes was that
Yeah,
one.
you're watching them try to speed off in the suburban, and she's trying to grow the hex as fast as she can, and you're thinking, okay, come on, get him,
Mm,
and they of course they get away, and they don't get captured by the hex quite yet. And yeah,
right.
that was one of those, I was certainly felt on the edge of my seat, because it was some really good action moment, and
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely one of those, like, oh, I gotta wait another week to find out what's gonna happen next.
Yeah. So that being said, episode 7 is the Modern Family style episode,
Yes,
and Vision wakes up in the circus and gets together with Darcy.
right, yeah. And the
And
guy that's running the circus starts yelling at them and telling them to get back to their their
yeah,
spots.
right. Definitely in your clown suit. And then Monica or Wanda is starting to lose it. The house is sort of reverting back to what it was.
Yeah, some of the
The lamp
some of the
starts
items in the
changing.
house start
Yeah.
glitching almost. Right.
Yeah.
And she's got the thought of, what, I don't understand what's going on. Why is this happening?
So Agnes, of course, pops in,
Of course.
says, let me take the kids off your hands for a little
Right.
while, okay?
Yeah, you need a
And
you day. Let me do this for you.
exactly. So Monica's on this mission to help Wanda and solve this problem. So she this is kind of one of those things where a lot of people were thinking that the aerospace engineer she wanted to work with was Reed Richards.
Right. Well, yeah, because she made it a point to say, I know an aerospace engineer that'll be perfect for this, and everyone's thinking, holy cow, this is how we get introduced to the the Fantastic Four and Reed Richards,
Yeah.
and once again, damn them for being so good, because
Yeah.
everyone was gonna, they had to know everyone was gonna think that, and it turned out to be nothing really at all. And
I know
the thing that cracked me up about it, about her, about Monica going back into the hex, was they bring in their other friends from I think it was still a sword agency, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And she said, "Okay,
They were, yeah,
here's
but they were friends of her mom,
right, yeah, anything for for you because of who your mom
Maria.
is."
Yeah.
And so did and she says, did you bring what I needed? And they unload this vehicle and says, yes, this is basically an unbreakable vehicle. And I'm
Right.
thinking like, but have you not learned that things don't like just transform, don't just make it through the hex without being modified somehow? Like no matter how strong it is, it's
Mm-hmm.
still going to change. And yeah,
I found that strange too.
yeah. And then
Let's get something like something with the biggest tires we've ever
right.
seen, and maybe
It
that will
looks like it's
help
supposed to be a
us
Mars
get
rover or
through.
something.
Right. But I mean, I could see that going through like a really rough terrain,
Right. But
but mm, I don't know.
it's like I think you missed the point of what the hex is. It's not that it needs to be like bomb proof and bulletproof. It needs to be basic like
Right.
electro proof or something like that, But
Mm-hmm.
even then, I don't think
Well,
it's strong. It would be strong enough because obviously we know that Wanda is extremely strong with her magic, and I don't think anything that went
right.
through the hex that she didn't bring in herself was going to be unaffected.
But
Yeah.
the destruction of the impenetrable or the impenetrable vehicle leads Monica to just say, "Screw it, I'm going in
Right.
without my helmet on."
Right.
Since that vehicle didn't do anything, I'm just gonna
Well, because
go through
yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, she notices that the vehicle's starting. It's not being destroyed. It's just changing. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going in.
Hmm.
Which it's like, I
Yeah.
don't know that I would have done that, but however, if it gives me
Right.
superpowers,
Exactly. Hey, man, I
I
do it.
might just do that anyways too.
I know. So to skip a little bit here, we get Wanda heading into Agnes's house,
Yes.
and she wanders into the basement, and she finds Agnes's lair,
Right.
her little hideout,
Yeah, and
and
that
we
was so cool. I really enjoyed, having that transition of a feeling of being like, whoa, this is really something that's deep going on, and
yeah,
I
you're about to get revealed.
right,
Something's about to happen.
right.
Did you know about the Darkhold before?
I didn't. I think I'd heard about
I
it
didn't
before, but
either.
I don't I I think I knew of it as a referenced item before, but I didn't really know anything about it.
Hmm.
Which is, I think, a
I
lot
didn't
of
either. I was pretty
yeah,
surprised. It's sitting there on one of these tables in Agnes's lair, and then we get this hilarious montage of Agatha.
yeah.
It's the big
The
reveal.
the,
This
the
hilarious
freaking
Agatha all along
the
song.
Monsters remixed song,
Yes,
which was in
yes. I'm glad you.
everyone that
I'm glad you picked up on
everyone that
that.
watched the show that was in our heads for days. The
Oh, absolutely. It's going on in my head right now. That was just great.
and
I loved it.
not to get too far off the point here, but I saw a remix of that a little bit where it was paired with a
Did
Fall
you
Out Boy song, Uma Thurman, and it worked perfectly. Yeah,
really? Oh, that's fantastic.
but I think that also
Well, that makes
references
sense.
that Munsters theme song too, though. So that's probably why it works easily.
That's the background beat for that song. I didn't think of that. That's a good catch.
Yeah,
And then one of the things, the killer to me was, and I killed Sparky
yeah,
too,
yeah. It's like,
which
holy cow!
which in right in that writing world um there's this joke about if you want your villain to be if you want people to know if a person that is a villain, if they walk past a dog, have them or have them kill the dog, and like they literally have her kill Sparky.
Yeah,
It just killed me. That was hilarious.
yeah, yeah. That was good. And so one of my complaints about the show is
Mm-hmm.
is to me it was how predictable uh the ending moment was with the
Mm,
spells on the wall, because
really?
when Wanda is brought down to that basement and Agatha says,
Yes.
nice to meet you. My real name is Agatha and Harkness, and this is who I am, and I'm a witch, and Wanda tries to use her powers, and she says, well, your powers won't work down here because there's these spells on every wall, and the only person that can use their magic is the person
Right.
that casts a
The
spell.
runes.
And I thought, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's such an outlined explanation of what's going on. And she's also, and Wanda is also a witch. It's like, okay, that's going to be
Mm-hmm.
used in the future. It's going to be, because
Eh,
that's a
I didn't know.
because
Truth be told,
it's
I
such
didn't pick up on
it's
that,
such a
man.
classic thing in a TV show or movie of the
True.
villain
Yeah.
explaining, you can't do this because I've done this and this. It's like, well, that's sure going to be referenced later.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of a trope. That's true.
Especially because she
Speaking
rebuilt
of
the
that,
walls, because she was tearing them down, and she
right.
rebuilt them.
Yeah, and then were her walls.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of that, we get to that episode there, and we find out it's Agatha Harkness, who's big in it's a real character in the Marvel comics,
Right.
and we get her origin story, a real quick origin story for her.
Yeah.
And I did like that, how they flipped the script on the traditional witch burning.
Yes. Yeah. And then it was fellow witches that were burning you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, oh, okay, she's about to get burned at the stake. It's like, oh, these are her little coven sisters, and they're they're burning her. It's
Right.
like, whoa, and that's her
Yeah.
mom.
And you know that
She's burning her own daughter.
and that was really cool to see, because I remember I'd actually forgotten about this until you know these episodes
Hmm.
aired, and these images showed back up. But I love seeing set photos, because it doesn't really spoil anything most of the time. But it gives you a kind of
Right.
a very quick glimpse into what's going on. And I remember when they were filming the show, and someone captured some set photos of that scene, of people being in
Oh.
those outfits, and they're saying that it looks like it's the Salem witch trials. I thought, oh man, this is gonna be
Hmm.
so cool, and it's so fun to see after you've seen a set photo, having it being what they turn that into.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll like that assembled then,
Yeah,
because they really go into a lot of that, especially the first part of it. They had that live audience for that. They had the real live audience there, and so
yeah, and
you gotta check that out too. I gotta finish, but the so then we kind of get this info dump from Agatha about witchcraft.
yes,
How witchcraft works in the MCU,
right,
and she's giving little lessons, and she's like, how come you don't know this? You don't even know how to change a cicada into a bird. You don't even know how to do this. How are you doing this entire reality around us? How are you controlling people miles away when you can't even change a cicada into a bird?
right,
So that was a kind of a cool. I think we're starting to learn a little bit more about the magic system, if you will, about in the Marvel verse outside of Doctor Strange.
right.
But and then the real downer for me again was Pietro, aka fake Fiatro. Uh, that
Pietro, I
was
like
a
that.
real. That was the big downer, man. To me, the my favorite part of the Marvel world growing up, and even I don't want to say even now maybe, but I just love the X-Men. I'll put it that way.
Yeah,
And to see that this was just circumventing our expectations and kind of a joke got really bummed me out, man. I'm still upset about it. I know you thought it was great and everything, but oh
Well, yeah,
man,
I mean, I mean,
man, I was really bummed out.
I wish it would have been bigger than what it was, but for what
Hmm.
it was a genius move because it was it was
Yeah.
once again one of those curveballs that they threw at you that you didn't know if it was going to go left or right, and I think
Hmm.
everybody wanted to go left, and unfortunately, they had to with with some of these things they have to follow logic more than they have to follow what everyone wants it to to follow, and it had to go right. So, but
Yeah.
some and
I
maybe
guess.
and
I guess.
the scene when Pietro captures Monica
Hmm.
and just holds her in that
Yeah.
bedroom. Something that
Right.
didn't it
His
just
man cave.
doesn't click with me is when when Monica wants to leave and he basically flicks her with a point of his finger, and then she realizes that
Hmm.
she can just like move him off to the side with her powers. It's like, well, why? I guess it's to show the back and forth of a small fight, but it's like, well, why didn't she just do that to begin with? Using her powers, but I guess then again, she doesn't really fully
She
understand her
may not have
powers.
known how she. I think you're right, but maybe that was what that was for,
Right.
to make us. Because when she did eventually take him down, her eyes kind of went blue,
Yeah.
and she was able to kind of like grab a hold of him. So I guess we'll learn
that's
more about
yeah. That's
that.
where we see the picture of him and his name being Ralph Boner.
Ralph Boner. Yeah. And so now, Agnes is always talking about Ralph. My husband Ralph
Right.
is here. We finally meet
Right.
Ralph.
So she married
And
younger.
right, yeah,
Because
good on
if
her,
anything,
right?
it seems like that would be her
Uh
kid.
right. I know. But yeah, I was like, "Oh, it's Ralph." Like that I
Right.
was just bummed out, but I was still laughing.
Yeah.
But I was bummed out. Ralph Boner. I was like, and then that was a what was that
I
from
think it was
a character
Family Ties.
the Family Ties, the
Yeah.
character that Matt Shackman worked with.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that was a tie back to that.
but
Yep.
so we still get this cool little spell that Agnes casts back in her lair to circle back. She pulls a hair from her head, and we're shown more kind of like more magic, and she needs this little component being her hair,
Right.
and we get a really cool. My favorite part here is we get this really cool background on Wanda and her family growing up
Yeah.
and why we're really here in this reality of TV
It
shows.
was like the Ghost of Christmas Past WandaVision style.
There you go. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what it really reminded me
Exactly.
of.
I didn't think of that. It's a good one. Yeah.
And the the thing that they talked about with her with her family dying, with with the war, and them her and Pietro
Yeah.
staring at that Stark bomb. Now was it
Yeah.
said that it didn't go off because Wanda didn't want it to go off? Did I pick up on that?
I think she said it was a dud.
Okay.
She said that, but I don't know if she didn't understand her powers at that time.
Right.
Like they were so weak that she didn't understand them, or the fact that it was really a dud. I don't know if it was really explained in the show,
Because from
but
what I understand, Tony Stark doesn't mess anything up. And then
right,
his weapons are always
true.
supposed to work. So I took that as
That's a
she was
good
able to
point.
stop it.
That I didn't think of that. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Because the Mind Stone is supposed to enhance
Enhance.
the powers that the person has, right?
Yeah.
So that could be why A, she was able to approach the Mind Stone, and then B, get more power from the Mind Stone.
Right.
That's a really good catch there.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. Yeah. So we get that. Did you have a favorite moment there in that flashback scene?
Um, probably, with her wanting to watch Dick Van Dyke show again, and her brother
Mm.
is saying, "Oh, geez, not this again," and it really gives you the indication
Mm.
of why she started, in her head and in this hex, having it be this 50s style TV show, because that's that's like her most treasured memory growing up.
We got at the end here. We got the big line, that a lot of people loved and touched on was Vision trying to help Wanda deal with her loss, and he says to her, "What is grief but love persevering?" And that was
Yes.
a big moment for them.
Yeah, it's it's his way of reassuring her that it's okay, and maybe
Hmm.
we've said hello 2 times, maybe we can say hello another again one day.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So
So Agnes starts asking what we're asking. She's saying, "How did you do this? How did this happen?" And Wanda's like, "I really don't know."
right,
She's trying to figure it out herself. So then we get another flashback to Wanda wanting to get Vision's body away from Sword so that she can give him a proper burial.
right,
And we get the big reveal that she did not in fact take the Vision's body.
right, and then it's like, well, what the heck is walking around in there?
Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, what now? Okay, the whole zombie Vision thing is blown,
Right,
right?
exactly. And it took me a bit to figure out that when they had said that, well, Wanda created Vision out of grief. It took me a while to figure out what they were
Mm-hmm.
actually talking about. That he only existed inside that hex because that's what she'd created.
And they did give nods to that with him trying when he, like you said, when he was trying to break out of the hex,
Right.
he was coming apart. So yeah, you're right there. So she does not take the body; she just leaves, and that was a cool scene. But she drives to Westview, and she pulls out this deed that has their house on it,
Right.
and they were supposed to build a home there. And for some reason, the heart on the deed made me think of how I don't know. It's just maybe weird to me, but with the Wizard of Oz thing going on and the heart, I thought of the Tin Man, and then I thought, well, Vision is like the Tin Man. He doesn't have a heart. He's because he's a
Yeah.
synth,
Right.
and I thought, wow, I wonder if they're trying to point that out or something. I don't know, but it's just something I picked up
You
on, and
probably found an Easter
of
egg
course
that's not
he
an Easter egg,
understands.
but it still
Yeah,
works.
right. Yeah, it worked, man. It worked for me
Yeah.
anyways, because he seems to understand human emotion more than most humans. You know what I
Right.
mean? So then we kind of see how the hex is created, and then she turns to her TV world to escape
Right.
reality. She makes this TV world, but then so then we get I guess we get the birth of how this all this really happened, and she just basically lost control, and we get a little back and forth here with Agatha now, and she says, "You are supposed to be a myth, being capable of spontaneous creation. It's chaos, magic, and that makes you the Scarlet Witch."
Right. Of course, with her strangling her kids
Yeah.
with her ropes, like
Yeah,
that's a little
exactly.
sadistic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that wasn't cool. So and then this post credit scene we got this is where they make the white vision from that drone
Yes, the
that's
drone energy.
imbued with Wanda's energy.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep.
Which was pretty. I didn't catch it first, and then I caught it my second viewing there.
Yeah, that was
And now we're at the
That was
finale,
Hayward's
man.
cataract project.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, Project Cataract. Yeah. So we're at the season finale, man.
Yeah.
Agatha's battling Wanda now, and she reveals that she can. Her gig is that she absorbs power from other witches, kind of like Rogue absorbs power of other mutants. And when they start the battle, right? And one of my favorite things here is she starts the way that Wanda fights is the way that Wanda fights, no matter who she's fighting. So the first thing she does is she whips this car at Agatha, kind of like in Civil War, where
Yes.
she was dumping the cars on everybody. you know, I was like, first thing I'm gonna do is throw a car at you.
So,
So there we
up with the
go.
car, and then we get to a Wizard of Oz, a major Wizard of Oz reference there, when she goes to see her underneath the
Yeah,
car, and the boots are
with the
still
boots.
underneath the car. So you may not be too far off
That was
with the
great.
heart reference on the floor plan, or the deed for the
Yeah,
land.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I know it was on the marquee too, but
Right.
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was a great reference. I'm glad they did that. But then White Viz shows up,
Right.
and she thinks, "What did you think when White Vision showed up?" Because I was like, "What is he gonna do? Is he gonna remember who he was and this and that?" And then he's squishing her head,
Right.
man. What did you think when he first showed up?
Ye- Well, for one thing, I figured they found out a way to like reprogram him, and
Mm,
when he showed up and started crushing her skull, I thought, well, it's one of those moments that you watch in these shows and movies where it's too early on to be, and we know that Wanda's going to continue, so we know he's not going to totally crush her skull in, but I thought, boy, it's going to be real interesting to see how this plays out and how she fights with him, and we know that
mm.
the vision that she created comes to our rescue, and they go off and battle so that her and Agatha can uh, do their battle.
True. Yeah. So then we get this kind of three different points of view now, at kind of like a Star Wars movie where you got Pietro and Monica, you got Sword, and then you got the battle in the square
Right.
of the middle of the hex there.
Yeah.
Pietro has Monica trapped, and that's where you were talking about.
Yeah.
They
Yeah. She
they found
she
out
figures out her
that he
powers, and
was
yeah.
Ralph
Yeah.
Boner. Yeah. And then Jimmy basically gets handcuffed, but he uses his he uses his close-up magic to
Right.
escape his
That's
handcuffs.
kind of like, thank you. This
And
is exactly
what,
what I
what
wanted.
right. And the great to me what was great was he says when he does it he goes flourish, which because he got that from when Vision was going flourish,
Right.
flourish. I just really love that.
Yeah.
That was a great touch there.
Yeah.
Then he calls the feds, and there's that little back and forth him and Hayward had, and
Well,
he says, "Can you guys show up within the hour?"
yeah, yeah. He calls them after. He says, "Well, there's feds that are showing up within the hour." And then he calls, "Can you show up within the hour?"
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it?
What a great bluffing
It's
moment
just so Jimmy Woo.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
it's totally something I would do too. It's like, by the way,
I've called the cops.
get here within
Hey,
the
can
hour.
you get here?
Yeah, it would make me look good.
Yeah.
So then we flip over to the witch fight, and there we find out more about this dark hold, and Agatha's teaching basically Wanda about the dark hold and how there's a whole chapter dedicated to the Scarlet Witch.
Right.
How, and I'm quoting here, not born but forged, no coven or need for incantation, and her power exceeds that of the Sorcerer Supreme.
Right.
Her destiny to destroy the world. And now that kind of blew me away.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was surprised to hear that she was more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. And
Yeah.
yeah, that line that she's destined to destroy the world. It's like, okay, is she going to become, an even bigger villain than what she's sort of become already?
Right.
Because she's still, I mean,
Um.
at first I was surprised that they didn't that that sword or the feds didn't take her into custody for what she did. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, but they probably realize that they can't contain her. It's like it'd be
No.
like arresting
Yeah.
Superman. you know, you, okay, you
No.
can go
Yeah.
behind the bars, but
Exactly.
he can really leave anytime he wants.
So you said about the villain, Agatha tries to show her that she is being a villain because this is not what heroes do, and she starts releasing the citizens of Westview,
Right.
and they're like, "Hey, we're in pain, and this and that, and let us go." And my son, my daughter play with your son? They could be friends, and Dottie's trying to convince her to just save the children, if you will.
Heck, she's like, I haven't seen my kids. Just let me go see my kids. It's like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
just let them
Yep.
be free.
Yeah. And Agnes is trying to drive home the point, she's messing with her. She's saying, heroes don't torture people.
Right.
Look what you're doing.
Right.
And so then then Wanda lets everybody go. She weakens the hex and she starts using her. She weakens the hex so that the people of Westview can escape. And at the same time, Hayward sneaks in,
Right.
right?
Hayward gets in and he wants to take
And
them out, but that doesn't go very far.
and then yeah.
when the kids can
So
take you
as they're
out.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, that was a great bit too when the little speedster, I don't know what he's called in or what he's going to be called in the MCU,
Yeah.
but he does something like what Quicksilver did when he stole that dude's hat in Days of Future Past.
Right. Yeah.
That he just did something. He stole the sunglasses and the hat. I was like, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
So then Monica, she sees that Hayward is about to shoot, kids. So she scoots in front of him, and we see more of her powers.
Right.
So we get more and more,
We
this little
yeah,
puzzle
we
box.
get a little taste of what she can do.
Yeah. Yep. The little puzzle that is her that keeps unraveling, and we get to see more of what she can do. Right.
Yeah.
So Vision and White Vision and the ship of Theseus, that was a very Vision thing to do, right? I mean, when Vision fought White Vision,
Yes.
and he brings up that thought puzzle about the ship of Theseus.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Well, he's an intellectual being,
Yeah, he presents this intellectual puzzle to make him realize that they're both Vision.
Right.
And then the White Vision has I call it the Iron Man moment of I am Vision, and he takes off.
Right. Well,
And there's a big question of where did he go?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, because we don't know. Did
What,
we?
Yeah. What were you gonna say before?
No. Well, because he the vision that Wanda made implants him with the memories of his past, because he says, I don't have any memories of my past. I don't know where I came from, and he implants the memories, and he says, okay, I am the Vision now.
Yeah, he touches his area that would be the Mind
Right.
Stone and downloads or unlocks the memories that Hayworth locked away, right?
Right.
So then we flip back to Wanda fighting Agatha, and she does the little mind spell where she puts the fear, or she gets into Agatha's head, kind of like she did back in Age of Ultron to the Avengers.
Yes. Yeah.
And they went into their worst fears.
Yeah.
And you see it didn't go so well.
Right.
She tried it, but again, Agnes has this power where she can absorb other witches' power. So she was able to kind of flip the script on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sending you all my power. Oh wait a minute.
Yeah,
I'll
right.
take that back now.
Yeah, which I thought, man, that's a great way of for Wanda to beat her, you know.
Yeah.
But man, it just didn't work. So, and then we got into what? Now we get into the very end here, like you were talking with the rune trap, using the runes to take away Agatha's powers, right?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and and it again brings up that classic the villain saying how they're suppressing the powers of the good guy, and
Hmm.
oh, I've turned the script on you, and using your own methods against you. Darn you, so and so.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it was still cool because she got to use it on a much grander scale, and in the end it
Yeah.
was you don't really know who you're messing with. You think, even though you've studied this for many years, I'm still more powerful than you, and she has
Yeah.
that the great line of don't don't kill me, you still need me. Says, okay, you'll stay here and I'll know right where to find you. It was
Right.
no.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she was not happy about that, but
the
I really hope we get to see her again, Agatha
Yeah, I think
Harkness.
there's
I just
a lot of times when there, something I've found is a lot of times when there's so much fan love for a certain character, if they have a way that they can write them back into something, they will find a way. Um, and
mm-hmm.
the and the way that she after she wanted to touch her head, and okay, you're back being what I want you to be. It was okie dokie Jaboki or something like that. It was like, oh my god, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she gets back to the Agnes overacting, and it's just so funny.
Yes.
Um so then the battle's over, right? And we get this moment of acceptance from Wanda that that those stages of grief, finally she's accepting what happened.
Yeah.
And we get these lines like a family's forever, you know,
Yeah.
and thank you for choosing me for the kids.
Yeah.
I really don't know how they're going to use these kids in the future. I mean, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a part of Multiverse of Madness or not,
Yeah.
but
Well, you almost assume so
it should be interesting.
by the that secondary the second post credit scene of her being in that
Right.
cabin, and you hearing mom come save us or something like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, wait a minute, now you question the whole thing of well, was she, you knew she was strong enough to create people within the hex, so when she did that,
Yeah.
did that just transform them somewhere else?
Right. Right.
And does that, is that something that
And
actually that does go back to Mephisto? And it'll be interesting to see
yeah.
if this character that so many people have talked about, comes up in this Doctor Strange movie, because it's supposed to be,
Mhm.
this upcoming Doctor Strange movie is supposed to be, very horror-ish, which I'm really looking
Yes.
forward to seeing some darkness go on.
Absolutely. So we do get a question from Viz. He says, "What am I?" Right
Yeah.
at the end there before he is completely
Yeah.
gone, and Wanda explains it as, "You are the piece of the Mind Stone that lives in me," and she kind of goes on about love and things like that.
Right.
So we kind of get a little bit of an explanation. It's a little bit wonky, but
Yeah. We get a little bit of
yeah,
explanation of how he's
that's
there.
our
Right.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? He sheds a tear, which I thought was interesting as a,
I didn't notice
you know,
that.
a synthezoid. Yeah, he sheds a little tear, Like, oh, that was cute. And then we get to our secondary scenes, our post-credit scenes.
Right. Well, in the first one, I almost assumed that the person that she was going to see is Fury, and
Yeah.
that person turned out to be a Skrull, and and before I searched anything, I thought, as there was so much talk, about how there was going to be a Luke Skywalker type cameo in this series,
Yeah.
and I had a few people in mind who it might be, and you saw the scroll, and I thought, okay, that must be who they're talking about, and then she says,
Mm-hmm.
someone wants to talk to you, and where are we going? And she just like point up, like, well, you're about to go to you're
Yeah.
we're gonna take you into space to see,
Yeah.
I assume Nick Fury in that space station that he's and that we see at the end of
Right.
wasn't it Spider-Man Far From Home?
Spider-Man. Yeah. Yeah, she says, I was sent by an old friend of your mother's.
Right.
He'd like to meet.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I'm like, yeah, this is Fury. They're going to continue on this relationship between. I mean, one of the greatest things to me about the Captain Marvel movie was Fury and his relationship with Captain Marvel, because they just kind of went at each other, which was cool.
Yeah.
And I really like this Monica Rambeau character, so I'm hoping they'll all be together.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm hoping it'll kick the movie up a few notches there. But and then we get the second post-credit scene. We get to this cabin, right? And she's she's reading the Darkhold, and she's reading it like Doctor Strange, right?
Right.
In his subconscious. And we even hear a little bit of the Doctor Strange theme.
Yeah, I didn't
And
pick up on that at first.
like you mentioned, but and then like you said, we hear the twins, right?
Right. Yeah. So who knows what's really going on, how they're going to bring the multiverse in, how they're going to explain
Yeah.
that, and with Marvel, by the time the Doctor Strange movie comes out, what they figured would work in one way, and they might have to rework another way. So hopefully we get to find out what those voices were about, and because there's sometimes
For
those small
sure.
details, they figure out that they can't make them work for the story that they want to tell, and we don't get to hear anything more. And so hopefully we'll get to hear, or we'll get to see what that's all about.
That's especially like you said, if you know, if the main villain is Mephisto and the kids were made from shards of Mephisto, you can kind of put that two and two together
Right.
if they do bring that to fruition there.
Yes.
But so now that it's all over, man, I mean, what was your top highlights?
I gotta say, I know it has nothing. Those first few episodes, especially the first one of them being in that world of the Dick Van Dyke world. I love those
Right.
episodes because they were, like I said, they were so well written, they were so well acted that you could tell that they clearly had
Mm-hmm.
fun with them, and
They had
it
fun.
was it
Yeah.
was it was they were moments that you knew something deeper was going on, but at the same time you could so
Mm-hmm.
easily get lost in what they were showing you, and just enjoying very
Right.
very simple comedy.
So you were buying into the puzzle box big time. You enjoyed that part of it as well.
I almost enjoyed it more than finding out what the puzzle box was about.
Mm, the mystery.
Yeah. So what about you?
Yeah. I had a few here, but my favorite episode was definitely episode 8 because I'm a big origin story fan.
Yeah.
So it was cool for me to see Wanda's kind of backstory.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that. But thinking about it, I I really enjoyed I really kind of connected with Wanda because if I'm down or whatever and I'm not feeling well or I'm sick or whatever,
Yeah.
I I tend to watch these movies that make me feel better.
Yeah.
Like I'll put in, I'll put in a Marvel movie, or I'll put in Star Wars. These movies I've seen so many times that kind of make me feel better. You know what I
They're
mean?
they're a- they're
So
they're enough enjoyment that they can take your mind off of something you don't want to think about.
right, and so this is kind of what she was doing. She was falling back on these shows that she used to watch as a kid, and to give her comfort. So I thought that was kind of a neat connection that I had with the show, you
Yeah.
know. But I also thought about what are going to be the consequences of this event that she went through. The people of Westview. She's had these in the past. She's had these actions and consequences. She she's we she's kind of human, right?
Right.
In Cap 2, we had Sokovia, and now we got the people of Westview, right? And I think in was it Lagos,
Yeah.
when she wrapped up Grillo in that, when he lit that bomb, and she threw Grillo up the building there, and the bomb exploded, and the building just that whole level of that building just
Oh, yeah,
evaporated
it was
and
like a
killed all those
children's
people.
hospital, wasn't
Was it? Oh, man. Okay, even worse.
it? Yeah.
So you got all these actions and consequences that they've been,
Well, yeah.
following up
Yeah, and
on.
I mean
I
she's
just
she's
I
the
just wonder
she's the reason for
what.
the Sokovia Accords.
Right. Exactly, Cap 2. So what are they going to be the future consequences of this? All these people. Are they just do you think they're just going to blow it off, or do you think they're going to
I
maybe bring it up in a future
I could
film?
see them bringing it back if there's ever like a WandaVision season 2. Uh but I
Mhm.
think what they're moving towards with the multiverse and Doctor Strange, I think it's going to become
Mhm.
too much grander of a story to tell without getting into the details of what the consequences were for all these people. So I think that would be,
Yeah.
depending on the outcome of the Doctor Strange movie, if especially if Wanda is still around, and that they figure out some kind of consequence of that, and that leads to something else, some other people being involved. I think that would make for a great season 2 of this show, um, to continue on with that. Um, so
Yeah.
I mean, I guess only time
Good
will tell,
point.
because as I said, we're not saying no to a season 2, but depending on,
Yeah.
we write things as we write them, and if something works out to tie back into something else, then it works out. So we'll have to wait and see.
Mhm. Yeah, that exactly. I found this article that asked Feige that question, and it's a very very long answer. So I put in the show notes, but he's basically saying maybe.
Right.
So if you guys want to read anything about that, check out the show notes there. But it's in the Sci-Fi Plus article. But um, there was a lot of talk about Easter eggs on this one. Did you have a favorite Easter egg, one or two, or?
I liked the flowers, the color of the flowers on the outside of the house,
Mm,
even though the
right.
one that everyone thought, with the color of the flowers in front of Dottie's house with being yellow, that didn't pan out to anything. But still, I thought that was a nice little touch that probably, unless you were into looking up Easter eggs, that you wouldn't have picked up on.
Yeah. There. I got a couple. I'm not like the biggest Easter egg uh, hunter, but I was trying to figure out the address,
Okay.
the 2800. Did you get anything on that? I know like the Marvel comics in general is Earth 616,
Okay.
but I don't know what this 2800 is. I don't know if it was supposed to be the world that the MCU is
Yeah,
in.
because usually most of the
I
numbers that
really
you
don't
see,
know.
a lot of the times the numbers that you see in this show, especially in those sitcom episodes, they'll point to different comic numbers, but I don't recall, because I know there were some that did point to certain comic issues, but I don't recall if the address of the house pointed to one.
Okay. The only other one I think we have to bring up, because our font is the Blade Runner font. I had to dig a little bit on this,
Okay.
but on the marquee of the movie theater, you know how it changed a lot, right?
Yeah.
We had a lot of different linked, funny movie, like, Parent Trap, and we had the, I don't know, was Incredibles on there too? I can't remember, but they had a lot of great little, Wizard of Oz, like you said.
Yeah.
But one of them that I had to dig a little bit on was this Tannhauser gate, and I really didn't pick up on it until I listened to that podcast with Matt Shackman on the Kevin Smith Show. I put that in the show notes, but this Tannhauser gate is this famous line, and I always thought it was the Tears in the Rain line, but or the Tears in Rain line, but what this Tannhauser gate is this reference to Blade Runner, right? Have you seen Blade Runner?
It's been many years since I've seen it.
Okay, so like Blade Runner 1 is about, it's about synthetic. It's about synths, kind of
Right. like how
Vision
was,
is, right?
Yeah.
And and then Harrison Ford's character falls in love with a synth. And then Blade Runner 2, the main character falls in love with an AI. So it's about a human falling in love with a synthetic person, I
right.
guess. So so I thought that was a kind of a cool nod to, and because this line that Rutger Hauer says, I won't read it, but it's a very famous monologue that he talks about where he's been and what things that he's done and how it kind of meant nothing. And I put that scene in the show notes too there, but that was a kind of a cool reference to me. And I thought if we didn't bring it up, we'd be in trouble because our font is Blade Runner. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, man?
No, I think we've covered just about everything there is to cover in this review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, what's going on for next week's show?
Next week's show, we're going to talk about the Oculus 2. Yeah. And then just also we got our first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so
yes,
we can talk about that too.
Yes. If we get time, if we don't get
Let's
going on too much Oculus.
Right, yeah, exactly.
These multi-hour
if we have
formats
time, right? Yeah, I know.
But,
I know.
Yep.
We'll see what we can do.
We'll fit it in there. So, this has been a virtual review.
Thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone. You've been listening to a virtual review. If you have questions or comments on the podcast, post them on our Facebook or Instagram page at the links below. If you like what you heard, please like, follow, subscribe, and share.